Speech by our finance minister. The currency market certainly didn't like it. The rand dropped, but as an analyst pointed out earlier, bad timing as well, because Brazil was downgraded again, and that had an effect on all emerging market currencies. Let's focus on tax now. For more, I'm joined by Kyle Mandy, PWC's National Tax leader. Great to have you with us, Kyle. So, all the predictions seem to be wrong. He didn't touch VAT. He didn't even raise income tax for the highest brackets. He didn't go to corporate tax at all. Are you surprised he left out those huge money spinners?
Well, no, certainly no surprises on the corporate tax side and the VAT side. I didn't expect to see any increases in VAT.
They were both sensitive, I guess.
They were very sensitive. Corporate tax, obviously increasing corporate taxes would have been very negative from an economic growth point of view. And VAT, the timing wasn't right, given that we are in an election year. COSATU certainly would not have liked that, and they have been in a dispute with COSATU around the retirement form in recent weeks. So certainly no surprises that there were no tax increases on that side.
All right, so maybe perhaps the most significant, the fuel levy. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, the fuel levy, no surprise that they increases. We certainly expected that they would increase it, but you also need to bear in mind as well that there were no increases in the RAF levy. That's also included in the fuel price. So that waters down the extent of the increase to some extent, bearing in mind that we certainly expected that there would at least be inflationary increases on that side as well.
Okay, so it's less of an impact to the consumer, which you don't want to hurt right now. Let's move to the upper echelons, because I remember last year the calls were quite strong for a wealth tax, and we don't really have that. But the increase in the capital gains tax, the increase on house transfer duties, especially if you're looking at 10 million or above, do we effectively have a wealth tax?
Well, in some respects we do, depending on what you determine, what you want to call a wealth tax.
It, yeah.
Absolutely. So yes, and certainly he was targeting higher income earners and the wealthy, if you like, insofar as those tax increases were concerned. And the same thing with personal income taxes, where the bulk of the non-relief, let's call it that, in terms of fiscal drag, was borne by higher income earners as opposed to your lower income earners. So definitely targeting that. Very wary of the effects that tax increases would have on middle income earners, both from an income tax point of view as well as the indirect taxes.
Overall, the tax package, was it good?
I think it was overall good. Yes, he managed to spread the burden around, alleviate the impacts on middle income earners to a significant extent. We certainly were expecting more significant increases than we did see. And we do need to bear in mind that the real structural increases only amount to about 12 billion rand, which, to put into perspective, was the shortfall in revenue collections in the last year in terms of what they forecast. So I think taxpayers got off very lightly.
Yeah.
But there is a catch, and we're talking about 15 billion rands worth of additional tax increases in each of the next 2 years as well.
He did allude to that. He said, that's a tool if economic growth doesn't pick up. I think we're definitely looking at those hikes next year. There's some interesting things. The sugar tax, which our health minister has been pushing for. How does that work? You were saying that we do have it in other countries. What's the sort of trend around the world?
Well, there's a growing trend towards introducing sugar taxes. Mexico introduced it about 3 years ago or so. It's been relatively successful in seeing a reduction in the consumption of sugared beverages. The UK is currently contemplating it as well. So it is a growing trend globally, and no surprises that South Africa is now looking at that as well.
It's I'm interested that you say that it actually did reduce consumption, because the other sin taxes, like on cigarettes and alcohol, it often doesn't change behaviour. So I was going to ask you, is it aimed at behaviour or just bringing more money into the kitty?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. There's no doubt it's aimed at behaviour, and the sin taxes have been successful in reducing volume of consumption. So, for example, smokers, it's actually taken a lot of people who were casual smokers, if you like, rather than hardcore addicts.
Yeah.
They have reduced their consumption quite significantly. So, in that respect, it certainly does play a strong role, but it also has a strong revenue-raising element to it as well. So what's important is that it's actually packaged with other measures and not just the tax itself.
Yeah. Finally, is it workable? Because it feels like we're being a bit unfair to the poor beverages when there's sugar in everything, basically, that we eat. Very complex quotas, I guess, would be needed. Do you think this would become bigger?
Well, I think it's sugar-enriched beverages which are the primary concern at this point in time. So I think that's where they want to start. There's no question that other processed foods also got significant sugar content as well. And they will possibly be looking to target those down the line, which is actually what they've done in Mexico. It's not just beverages in Mexico, it's actually all sugared foods.
All right, so more to come. Thank you for your time, Kyle Mandy, PWC's National Tax leader. Now let's move to other news. Unemployment in South Africa. Some good news for a